6:03. What's that, Mom? All right, so everyone knows who will be seated tonight. It will be Jack Daly as a permanent member, myself, Delia. And we have Ray via Zoom and Miles via Zoom. So that will be a full board, but the alternates are definitely invited to stay and ask questions for sure. The meeting will be conducted, or the hearing will be conducted by allowing the applicant to make a statement about their application. And then from there, we will open it up to the ZBA board for questions to the applicant. Once that is finished, we will open it to the general public for questions. We will close the general public, and then we will go into a voting or consideration mode as to whether the special exception will be granted. I would ask tonight that anyone that speaks that's probably not at this table and doesn't have a name tag, please state your name before you speak so that Judy, the new minute taker, can know who's speaking. With that being said, I will ask who's going to be presenting for tonight. Kathy?
Thank you. I am Kathy Conway with Horizons Engineering. And first I wanted to share with you some information about the project and general information about the signage. So we are looking to construct an urgent care facility and a medical office building on Railroad Street across from the Hobo Museum. So sheet C3 is just kind of an overview of the site plan that we're looking to develop. Sheet C5 is what we call the signage plan. And I just wanted to go over the signage that we're proposing and then talk in more detail about the sign that we're here for tonight. So you may recall that we do have approval for an off-lot sign located on lot 16, closer to the intersection of Railroad Street and Main Street than our property is located. That sign will be for both the urgent care and the medical office building. Traveling down Railroad Street, we have a freestanding sign for the urgent care facility on lot 1. And then we also have a building sign as well when you're traveling towards the facility. We're also proposing a freestanding sign on lot 2 for the medical office building, as well as a sign on the building itself. The most northern sign at the end of the third parking entrance is the sign that we're here to talk about tonight. And that is the proposed 75-foot tall sign. I should mention that this freestanding sign for the medical office building may look like option A or option B, which is shown at the top of the plan sheet there. And the sign that we're here to talk about tonight is this option C freestanding sign, which would have an 8-foot by 24-foot sign for each of the businesses. And so, you know, the question is, why do we need a taller sign? And so in order to determine what we needed for visibility, so that we could inform the traveling public that there's a medical facility here in the community, and also to develop something that's normal and customary for medical facilities that have visibility challenges such as our site. So we started off with a balloon test, and this is on sheet 1 of 3, with a 42-foot high balloon. And that would be equivalent to a sign on the back of the building once the building was constructed based on finished grade and all of that. And so as you can see, that I just took a picture of the balloon from the parking area. And then we also took a photo headed northbound looking into the facility. And this is the only place that that balloon at that height is visible. It's not visible headed southbound at all. So then we said, let's look at a higher sign, a higher balloon test, so that we could try and get visibility from both directions on the interstate. So we conducted a second balloon test in a different location. That first balloon test was located on the back of the building, on the back of the medical office building. This second balloon test was located at what we called location 2, which is the northernmost sign that we looked at on the site plan. And so what we found when we conducted this balloon test is, first off, we took a picture from the intersection of Main Street and Railroad Street. And if you look really carefully, you can see a small red dot, but even a sign at a balloon at 62 feet was not readily visible from Main Street. And then we also drove north and south on the highway and took some photos. And so again, heading northbound, we could see the sign from this location here. But that was after we had passed the exit 32. Headed southbound, we could see the sign right around in this bridge crossing. It started to become visible about here. We could see it through the bridge and about to this point. And then, the flow could then get off of the exit because that is before the exit. And so we said, we don't have great visibility headed northbound at the 62-foot height, so let's try 100 feet and see what that gains us. So the next test we did with the balloon was to set it at 100 feet, and it didn't really gain us much of anything. There was really no change. I don't show the pictures because there was really no change in terms of the visibility. Headed south and northbound, we could see it in the middle of the exchange. So there really wasn't a lot to be gained. So we went back and we said that if we do it at 60, we did our balloon test at 62 feet. We add our 2 8-foot signs. That brings us to 78 feet. So that's where we got the 75 feet from in terms of, visibility and knowing that the trees will grow and that kind of thing. So that is our proposal for the height. And sometimes when you drive a road, you don't always see signs. So the other day when I was driving north, I stopped to kind of see what other interstate exchanges had signs. And I just put this quick little photo synopsis together. And, I didn't start looking until I got north of the Lakes region, kind of started looking in the Campton area and Thornton, because that's where the National Forest and kind of the look and feel kind of changes a little bit. So exit 28 in Campton has several signs, and it has a large, very tall mobile gas station sign that I did not measure it, and I didn't have time to try and figure out how tall it was, but it's on the order of 75, 100 feet. Continuing to head north, exit 29 in Thornton, right by exit 29 in Thornton, there's another sign large, not as tall as ours, right along the Penny there. Mile marker 97.8 between exits 30 and 31. There's a sign for Indian Head Resort. Mile marker 96 between exits 31 and 32. There's a sign for Alpine Adventure. And then north of here, exit 33 Woodstock, there's also a sign for Clark's Trading Post. So the point of that was just to share that this is not the only sign that's being looked at along the highway, that there are other existing large signs. So I can go through the checklist with our answers if you would like me to do that at this point, or if you have some questions, you tell me what you would like.
Why don't we go through the questions from the board first, and then after the board's finished, you can go through those
Okay.
answers.
Yep.
Paul, could I interrupt for a second? This is Peter Malia.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Did you want to do the regional impact decision first? I didn't know if you do find this to be a development of regional impact, then you have to provide notice to the Regional Planning Commission and any abutting municipalities that you think are impacted. And I'm sure the applicant would rather not have to repeat their whole presentation a second time if we have to sort of continue tonight, if you find that it's a development of regional impact and bring in additional parties. So it's okay if you want to go forward. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Well, it does make sense to do it that way. I was going to take that up as a first order of business for the board anyway, so I'm glad you brought that up. We need to review, the board needs to review whether or not this is going to be a development of regional impact. Everybody in their packet got the review guidelines for the development of regional impact. I think I got two of them. And we should probably go through those. I just barely received these tonight.
Just the last one, the very last page, the last one.
I really haven't had a chance to go through this. Has anyone else had a chance to review?
Page 5 to the last 2.6.
I've had a chance to review these, and this is Miles.
How'd you get them?
And I do believe we may have an issue here in the fact that we also received a letter today from the president of Deer Park, which is on the border of Woodstock and Lincoln, I believe. And then we have the interstate buffer, and then these properties abut the other side, which means, I don't know, but that's what I thought. Is that what you're talking about, the highlighted area, Carol?
Yeah,
Yes, 2.5.
yeah, it's 2.6.
2.6.
2.6 says directly abuts a municipal boundary. Is the proposed development on land that directly abuts a municipal boundary? If so, it's going to affect neighboring properties in an adjacent municipality. If it might, the local land use board should consider making a determination of regional impact. I was going to go down through these one at a time to see if they had any, but that one certainly.
I also thought 2.3.
Why don't we go down through these, and as a board, we can discuss whether or not we think they fit, or they're applicable to this question.
Miles just referred to the signage request that we received, the information we received from the president of Deer Park.
Right.
Ms. Conway was not, have you seen that, Ms. Conway?
I think I got the first page of the letter, but I think there's a second page perhaps.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah, Carol handed it to me.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, the first one I see is 2.1 economic structure. Might proposed development affect the economic structure of neighboring municipalities by. And it goes down to 2.1, 2.12. Do you want me to read all these off?
No.
Do you have a copy of this, Ms. Collins?
We discussed it.
Well, there's people who don't know what we're
I
considering.
understand.
I
That's
didn't
why
see
it's-
anything in
We have a lot of people
On.
attending via Zoom.
Is this your only copy, Carol? No, I got
Okay.
another one.
All right, I just didn't want to take it.
I'll take one.
No.
So if everyone on board has a copy of this, we'll just go down through it by the numbers here. 2.1.1.
I didn't see it.
Does anyone have any comments about that?
This is,
I didn't see
No?
anything applicable on that one.
Okay. If you do, please speak up as I go down through here. 2.1.2. I don't see anything there.
No,
2.1.3.
I do. I see that it would have a regionally significant impact on the view going up the highway.
Well, I think 2.1.3 says increasing the need for housing. 2.1.3.
Oh, I was going by the highway.
You were going on
areas.
2.3. Yep.
Oh, we're going by big headings here.
Yeah, we were going by the major heading.
Oh,
So 2.3, settlement patterns or regionally significant features. I think that part of Lincoln, when you're turning it up into the notches
Wait a minute.
significantly.
so, wait a minute here. So no one had any problems with 2.1?
No.
None of 2.1?
Nope.
Okay. and
none.
No one had any problems with, or any concerns about 2.2, infrastructure capacity? Okay. 2.3 is where you were at. And which one on 2.3?
I think it's a regionally significant area.
Yep.
And it's going to have an impact.
And what's part of 2.3? Is it 2.31 or 2.32 or 2.33 that you're saying?
I think it's the heading itself, I didn't read all the other aspects of it, but,
There are
It's-
three different aspects of that.
okay. hold on.
2.31 does not apply.
No,
2.32, I don't believe that applies either. They've already been granted their facility size.
2.33. Doesn't sound like it either.
No, I don't believe that does either.
Well, yeah, I think we can probably put yours underneath that, the last one we
Okay,
were
all right.
talking about.
Okay.
2.4. Does anyone have?
No,
Miles, anyone else have any concerns or comments about 2.4?
I'd say no as well.
Yeah.
This is Ray.
Okay, 2.5, quality of life and emissions.
No.
no,
I,
no, it's 2.51, it's
Right.
a sign.
2.1 may be where you might want the second one down.
The second one down, it must be 2.52 even though it's called.
Yeah, I think it's a 2.52 it would be after the one, but it says producing or having anticipated visual impacts such as, but not limited to, cell towers, wind farms that may impact a neighboring municipality, including municipalities not directly abutting the host municipality. So that would probably be,
That is correct. That is correct.
that's correct.
Wouldn't that 2.5, it's labeled 1, but
It should be 2.52.
2.52.
It should be 2.5.2.
That's what we're saying.
We can change that.
And I believe 2.6 applies also.
Well, let's wait and get,
Well, on the other side of the interstate, they abut the interstate. Don't they? Up on the property that's proposed for these buildings?
land that directly abuts municipal property.
And then on the other side of the interstate is the town of Woodstock.
So did Woodstock get a butter notification?
No, just Deer Park.
Just Deer Park. So Woodstock did not get an abutter notification.
Now, knowing Woodstock, they have no zoning at all, but doesn't mean we're not supposed to notify them. I don't even know if we'll get a response from the selectmen, but
But however, Miles, at 2.6.1 says, if so, is it going to affect neighboring properties in adjacent municipality? If it might, the neighboring the local land use board should consider making a determination of regional impact. Based on our, what we have received from,
the Deer Park letter?
Deer Park letter, I would say that it would qualify as 2.6.1.
I agree with you.
So we have two things, items that we have.
Require,
Require
No.
further
yep,
consideration as a regional impact.
Mr. Chairman,
One is 2.5.2 and one is 2.6.1. Yes, Ray, go ahead.
the concept of a development of regional impact is a pretty major thing. There's almost nothing you can do that doesn't have some minor impact if you're near your property line of a community. I look at the concept of the development of regional impact as something far more significant than the visibility of a sign under these circumstances. I think we ought to be very careful about setting a standard that says that this is a development of regional impact, because we could suddenly find ourselves facing an awful lot of minor interpretations that really don't come to that level of significance. In this instance, when we're talking about a sign, and the balloon tests are pretty significant as well, I think that it would be unfortunate to interpret this request as a development of regional impact. I don't think it's applicable.
Okay, Ray, so then my question to you would be, if it's not a development of regional impact, it has already had a regional impact on a neighboring resort in Deer Park, who has sent a letter not supportive of it
regarding the sign.
regarding the
Not
sign.
development.
Regarding the sign. So
Okay.
we do have one, we do have someone that is in a neighboring community that has sent a letter.
I understand, Mr. Chairman, and that can happen, and that can happen under any circumstances. And that's, in this instance, that's one letter, but it could be 10 letters. Nonetheless, I think we have an obligation when we're interpreting developments of regional impact to look for something of greater significance than this. Otherwise, we almost give up our power as a ZBA and as a community. I don't think that the mere fact that somebody has raised a question equals a development of regional impact. It is a question, and my answer would be, we don't think this is a development of regional impact, and don't see that impact simply because there's a couple letters or even more than that, even if there's a petition. I think regional impact is far broader in its significance and its to use the word, again, its impact on our community and on progress in general. Got to be very careful when you start interpreting something of this nature as a development of regional impact. When do you stop? I think it has to be very significant before something is a development of regional impact.
Any other comments from the board?
I understand, Miles. I understand where Ray's coming from. I'd like to see if we could defer to Peter Malia and get his opinion on that.
Peter?
Lots of good points raised by several of you, in particular Ray, who has lots of experience in this area. I think he's right in that typically a development of regional impact is for more of an actual development. Here you have a sign, so it would be a little bit unusual for a sign to qualify as a development of regional impact, but not impossible. It's a rather large sign. It's on the border with a neighboring town. It's affecting a neighboring community, Deer Park. And it could potentially qualify as a development of regional impact, even though it would be a little bit unusual because typically it's, you know, more of a major development as opposed to a sign. So really it's up to you. You've identified the two sections of the guidelines which potentially could qualify this sign as a regional impact development, 2.5.2 and 2.6.1. I think somebody should make a motion to make a motion that the sign qualifies as a development of regional impact under 2.5.2 and 2.6.1 and have it seconded, and then you can discuss and vote thumbs up or thumbs down. It's really up to the board. You might think of it in the reverse. What if Woodstock was putting up a rather large sign that you guys could see from Lincoln and you had no notice from them? Would you be upset that you weren't made a party and invited to participate in the proceedings? Maybe you would here in this case, maybe you wouldn't. So I'd make the motion, have it seconded, have a discussion. Ray made some good arguments against finding it a development of regional impact, but see if Ray's arguments carry the day.
Okay, so before we go into any other comments, would someone like to make a motion?
Chair Bowden, may I say one thing? My name is Mark Bowden. I'm counsel for the applicant.
Who's speaking, please?
Mark Bowden, counsel for the applicant.
Okay,
I just want to remind or notify the ZBA that the planning board in the 2 or 3 hearings, and when they considered the site plan and subdivision application that were approved, did consider this very same question and voted unanimously that it was not a development of regional impact. And the sign was shown on the site plan.
when I asked that question, Mark of council, of Peter, I believe the answer was that each board has to make its own determination as to whether or not it is a development of regional impact. So even though the planning board made their determination that it was not, zoning board still has to consider that.
The zoning board has to consider it, yeah.
Am I correct, Peter?
Yeah, that's my opinion, yes. I mean, I think the planning board's decision is instructive, but it's not controlling. I think you guys have to make your own decision based on the size of the sign, which they weren't really considering the size of the sign. They were considering really the development of the site.
Element of the whole parcel. Yeah. So we'll take, I'll entertain a motion if someone wants to make one.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Ray.
I move that this project is not a development of regional impact pursuant to sections 2.52 and 2.61, period.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Miles will second it. Now we have some discussion. I'd like to make a comment that I think that Peter's comment about how Woodstock would feel if Lincoln was putting one up, or how Lincoln would feel if Woodstock was putting one up, is also very relevant in this case. I think that we owe it to other communities to allow them and afford them the ability to make comment on something. It doesn't mean that it's going to change the outcome, but it does allow for a open process and a comment period for other communities to be able to comment. If they have good comments, they'll say good comments. If they don't, they won't. I mean, but at least it does allow for that. And that, to me, that's part of the process that we go through, is open dialogue between all people, not just people in Lincoln, but the people and the surrounding communities that we have. So, I mean, for me, I don't think it's going to hurt anything to have our neighbors weigh in on it.
Yeah.
They thought of something that we did, you know, and for me, it kind of open process.
Can I speak at this time?
No,
No? Okay. No question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
The comment was made that the sign was on the planning board's plan, right? But the sign's over the height limit, so how could that be? Can you explain that? I missed something there. How can it be on the plan if the sign's over the ordinance height? The planning board doesn't have the right to approve or disapprove that. They have the right to approve the sign location, correct?
and that's
So
why,
that has no merit at all.
right, but that's why they're here tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So that has nothing to do with anything.
They were,
Yes,
it was explained they would have to go to the ZBA.
Yeah.
And then for a
Exactly.
special exception.
So the site for the sign is fine with the planning board, the height, not.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jack.
Ms. Conway, a couple quick questions. Number one, if we continue this hearing to get additional input, does that impact the status of construction or delay the project?
The quick answer is no, because I believe that we could get our building permit without this sign approval, as long as we're not putting it up until after we have the sign approval. Is that a correct assumption?
Carol, is that, I believe that's correct. You already have an approval from the
Already
planning
has
board.
site plan approval.
Right, so we could get our building permit, which is what we need to start construction.
Yeah, you wouldn't put a sign up. I mean, you could get the sign future home up, but you wouldn't put a sign up advertising something that's not in existence. The second part of my question is, would you have any objection to going before the Woodstock Board of Selectmen to get their input and see, they haven't seen any of these documents? Would you have an objection so that we can answer this question about, you know, the impact on a neighboring community? And like Paul says, be good neighbors. We don't want them stuffing something down our throats, so we've had no input.
I have no objection to that, but I do question whether this sign is even visible from the town of Woodstock. That's my question. I believe that the interstate is the boundary between Lincoln and Woodstock. Is that,
No, it is in Woodstock.
It is in Woodstock.
okay, so the interstate is in Woodstock,
That's correct.
but the
Right.
property is on the opposite side of the interstate from where the sign is going.
Woodstock is a legal abutter. The Deer Park is, but for the road, they would touch, so.
Right,
It is.
but so I guess I go back to my original question. I have no problem going to the Woodstock Board of Selectmen, but
So
I don't know that this sign will be visible from Deer Park.
If we're gonna make this, if we're gonna vote on this to be a development of regional impact, there are specific guidelines that we have to follow. Once we determine that it is, in fact, we think if it gets voted that way, and we'll have to follow those.
No,
And those will require Kathy, or the, not going to Woodstock, but Woodstock submitting a letter or whatever to us if they have a concern, as well as, you know, others, but.
well, again, you know, my
Well, if
question,
they don't care, they'll just either not respond at all. or
Right.
they'll just
Correct.
text me and, or I mean, email me and say, you know, we don't care.
Or they won't say anything at all, but at least they'll have had an opportunity, which is more than they would get. Now, are there
I
any
have
other?
a question
Yeah,
on
go
why,
ahead.
if they are the abutter, why weren't they notified of this pact?
Well, it was sort of a sticky situation because the planning board had decided that they were not. It's up to the planning board. I mean, the zoning board, the board has to decide whether it's not my decision.
The planning board decided that Woodstock was not an abutter.
Yes,
But you're saying tonight they are an abutter?
no, they're a different board, but Woodstock,
Well, that's a
You have to-
major point, because if we consider them an abutter, we have to start this process all over by notifying them of this hearing,
well,
right?
They were,
I'm thinking that, can we continue them and then just notice the town of Woodstock and North Country Council? That's it. Peter, is that possible?
Well, I think we're confusing two separate things. There's a legal sort of definition of an abutter, and, you know, setting aside the whole issue of development of regional impact, anybody who qualifies as an abutter has to get notice of the public hearing. So it was determined that Woodstock, there's a definition under state statute of abutter. I think because of the fact that the highway separates Lincoln from the next closest property in Woodstock, we determined that Woodstock was not an abutter as far as that definition was concerned.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't be made an abutter pursuant to the regional impact statute. So if you find that this is a development of regional impact, then the statute says that you have to furnish by certified mail the Regional Planning Commission and the affected municipalities with copies of the minutes of the meeting and the application and the plot plans and everything else. And then the affected municipality, as you know, as several folks have already mentioned, they can participate or they can just ignore it. And the Regional Planning Commission can participate or they can just ignore it. So there's two separate things. There's a legal definition of abutter, and then there's a determination of a development of regional impact.
So if we determine that it's not a development of regional impact, can we still, as this board, decide that we still want to notify Woodstock as an abutter to this case so that we can get their input without it being so involved with the regional impacts part of it?
Woodstock.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. Woodstock
Hey,
was notified. I mean, it's in our packets. His
Oh.
30 or 40 addresses.
No, it's those are Deer Park.
That's a deal.
That's Deer Park. That's what I'm saying. That's, but the town of Woodstock.
Town of Woodstock.
Oh, the town of
Should have. I think they should have.
See,
one speaking at a time.
in my thoughts right now, if the board decides that it's not, as Ray says, a regional impact, then we can start the process on this application. Looking at the application, we can find it not complete because Woodstock wasn't notified. They can be notified, we can set a new hearing, we'll get their impact. If they don't care, they don't care, but at least we've considered them.
This application, you really can't say it's either complete or not complete. You can say that there's information missing. But,
Oh, okay, yeah.
you know,
But
and we haven't even gotten into that, where we're just kind of looking at whether it's a development of regional impact now based
Right.
on the guidelines that are provided.
Mr. Chairman?
Peter?
I did have my hand up, but Ray has his hand up.
I didn't see you, Ray. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I've had an occasion, especially in the summer, to walk around Deer Park, beautiful place, including walking right along the west side of I-93. And I believe the houses in that area are depressed to the point where they don't, I don't think they see 93, let alone the sign on the other side of 93. Um, um, Some of them, I believe the roofs are not at the level of 93. I would defer to others who have greater knowledge than I, but I think it's quite a stretch to have a conclusion that this is a development of regional impact as to Deer Park. As to any other part of Woodstock, I just don't see it. It's not trying to slight anybody, it's trying, or any community, it's trying to be factually correct about the circumstances.
Any other comments? So we have a motion and a second that this is not a development of regional impact.
Paul, can I just speak to the motion for a second?
Go ahead.
I don't know if you want to withdraw the word not, Ray, it's up to you, but the way it's phrased right now, if you do think it's a development of regional impact, you'd have to vote no. And if you do not think it's a development of regional impact, you'd vote yes.
That's how I intended it.
Okay, so I just want to make sure before you vote, everybody knows how to vote. If you do not, if you agree with Ray and you do not think this is a development of regional impact, then you're going to vote yes. You're going to vote in favor of Ray's motion. And if you do think it's a development of regional impact and we should pause and continue and notify the Regional Planning Commission in Woodstock and come back another day, then you vote no on the motion.
I agree with that, Peter.
So all those in favor that this is not a development of regional impact, you would vote yes. So I'll call for a vote. All those in favor that this is not a development of regional impact, to vote yes.
Say yes.
Say yes and raise your
Yes.
hand. Say yes and raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. I can see Miles, your hand raised and raise it. Okay, so
Yes, it is.
so it's unanimous that this is not a development of regional impact, and everybody voted yes. So we can move on from that. Okay, now we'll go on to the proposal, which is the applicants are under contract to acquire subject lot where the sign is proposed upon requiring subject lot. I might have this right. Appellants have conditional site plan review approval to construct 2 medical facilities to be occupied by 1 third-party tenants, including the Littleton Regional Healthcare. Appellants want their sign to be visible from Interstate 93 north and southbound. The proposed sign will exceed the maximum height requirement of 20 feet above grade and a maximum size requirements for a multi-business property of 150 square feet. Appellant wants 384 square feet of signage at a height of 75 feet above the grade. And the Land Use Plan Ordinance, Article 6B, Lincoln Sign Regulations, Section E, permit requirements and review procedure, paragraph 10, sign classification standard, subparagraph I, freestanding sign, subparagraph 2I, standard subparagraph C, restricts both the size and height of a freestanding sign. Freestanding signs in the village center zone must not exceed 50 square feet per single business, excluding structures, or 100 square feet in the general use zone. Multiple business properties are permitted 1 freestanding sign with only 32 square feet allowed per business, not to exceed 150 square feet, including the structure. The support structure for a freestanding sign must not exceed 50% of the allowable sign square footage. The maximum height for a freestanding sign, except in the residential zone, is 20 feet above grade, and the maximum depth is 1 foot, except when the supporting structure is of natural stone or stone-like product where the maximum depth is 2 feet. Proposed sign is not permitted except by special exception as provided in Article 8, Section B, A, Board Adjustment Paragraph 2, subparagraphs A and D of this ordinance, and Section H, appeals, paragraph 2, special exceptions for sign, subparagraph A and E. We have heard from the applicant. Kathy, did you want to say anything more about this before we before I open it up for the board to ask questions?
I think looking at the criteria, just really briefly, that, it's important for us to have the medical facilities visible, because Lincoln is such a tourist-based economy. Many visitors are not familiar with the area. So that's part of our reasoning for needing a sign, is for direction and visibility, so that the visitor can safely access the facilities. In terms of the other criteria on architecturally compatible and those types of things, it is not, it does not have any lighting. It does not produce any noise. It's not, we do not believe it will negatively impact any of the existing businesses. It's a wooden structure, which again, the wood frame and the vinyl laminate signage fits in and is architecturally compatible with what is in the area. And
recording in progress.
And then in terms of, it being an unsightly distraction to traffic, it's going to be beneficial to traffic to direct folks who are not familiar with the area to a medical facility. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Jeff, go ahead. I already felt that this is going to be used by the community.
By the way, this Jeff
Woodward, I'm chair of the Littleton Hospital Board. These facilities will also be used by people coming from Littleton, Plymouth, Concord, for the type of facilities and the type of dogs who will have this facility. It won't just be local people using the facilities. So people coming from up north and down south will also want to know where these facilities are. One of the points behind this type of facility is that you can do day surgeries in these facilities at a much lower cost to their patients than you can in Littleton Hospital, for example, or at Plymouth Hospital. So this facility will be used by people coming from Woodville, Concord, Plymouth, Littleton, all around. So it's not just tourists coming through the area who'll be using this facility. The other thing I would mention too is that, when you talk about impact with visual or whatever, I'm very conscious of that. I have 2 businesses in town. I used to have a resort in town. We've also taped off several trees that are dead or dying, and we've gone through those with DOT, and we're talking about maybe those will be cut. And quite honestly, if some of those are cut that we've taped off, and there's a spot this sign can be seen from the interstate that's 50 feet high, we wouldn't put it 70 feet. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want visibility so people traveling over the they can see it. And if some of the trees that we've taped that are definitely dying, and we have to come down before it falls on someone in the building, open up a spot where we can be 50 feet. I would say we go 50 feet. We're not going to just stick something way up above the tree line that's so visible that it's just ugly. We're not going to do that. And we'd also say, I think there's been approval, I'm not positive, but of a new cell tower right at the top of the notch, just as you head into the notch, just passing in it. So it's not like we don't have kind of things up in the air that people will see.
Did you say there was an approval for that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know there's talk of one up there. So
Well,
I
it's
don't know
not,
if it's been approved or not. But
it was not approved.
okay.
So I think before us tonight, we have some questions here. I think first of all, one of the questions that I have, and Kathy, I have to ask you earlier, you mentioned that other freestanding sign that was on that lot, not the 75-foot sign, but the other freestanding sign. Will that be advertising one of the businesses that is on the other lot?
No.
Or is it just going to advertise a business for the sign that the lot that it's on.
Lot 1 will have a freestanding sign advertising the business on lot 1. Lot
Okay.
2 will have a freestanding sign advertising the business on lot 2.
So they won't be advertising on each other. The only one that will have both businesses on it will be the 75-foot sign
And the one down on lot
and,
16.
and the one by where Rogers is.
Yes, yep.
Having said that, there is a question as to whether or not that this 75-foot sign request represents an off-premise sign. Based on the town's ordinances and in discussion with Carol, I think she agrees that it is, am I correct? That it does constitute a second off-premise sign. There is one other sign that is going to be going up on this DOT right away by McDonald's, I believe.
Right.
And that's going to be provided by the DOT.
That is one of those, we haven't gotten permission for it yet, but we have been in conversation with DOT, the tourist-oriented directional signs. So it's not an advertising sign, it's one of those blue signs that says next left medical facility, or something along, or an arrow pointing left, or something along those lines. It's the standard, what they call TOD, or tourist oriented.
And that's on 112.
That's on 112.
And have you approached the highway about putting a sign on one of the blue, this exit, advertising that way?
We have this waiting list,
But how long?
2 ahead of us at this point.
I communicated with Shari King, and I think you did too, and she said it had to be a 24-hour facility in order to qualify for the blue H.
Right.
The age, yeah.
But they can buy a spot, right?
On the other side, you can buy a spot.
Yes.
Right, kind
So-
of like your Clark's or whatever.
Right,
Right.
they have, they have more.
That are on the actual exit.
On
We're on the list.
Oh,
Okay.
But just one at a time, please. So we,
I didn't know anything about that.
We're on the waiting list to be on that side.
Okay.
but as to whether or not the one in the DOT right of way represents an off-premise directional sign, this board should weigh in and make that decision. Because there have been other signs, as Carol pointed out in an email, that have been in the right of way or just outside the right of way. That the town has weighed in on.
Well, I think most of the signs on Route 112 here are not in the right of way.
The one for the hoops,
Well, it's right next to the right of way.
that was in the right. I thought.
No, they made
It's overhanging.
sure that it wasn't supposed to be overhanging the sidewalk. And then, but the right of way for 112 widens right next to McDonald's. So I showed you a picture of that. So they're talking about putting it in the state right of way, that piece right there. And that's, and Shari King from DOT said that that's her jurisdiction right there. And that, they can allow.
So just for the record, I'd just like to poll the board to make sure that no one feels that that sign that's in the state DOT right away represents what the town and the town ordinance would be called an off-premise directional sign. Jack, do you think it's an off-premise directional sign that the ZBA needs to weigh in on? Or do you think it's under the, that the DOT, it's under their jurisdiction?
I think it's under DOT.
I would think the same thing with that sign, as long as it doesn't have, it wouldn't have the name of the business on it, am I correct? Okay,
Urgent care medical.
okay.
So would or would
You?
you not?
Julie?
I agree with you.
It's not,
I don't consider it.
Ray?
It is my understanding that the the state is providing approval for that sign that we're now discussing, correct?
Correct.
They are the sovereign over their right of way and certainly over the town of Lincoln. Therefore, I think the state has jurisdiction on this issue. So
Okay.
I say we don't.
Correct. Miles? Are you there, Miles? Uh-oh, we lost Miles.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. I got you back. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm on a
Where you're at.
phone now. I'm on a phone. But I do agree that's DOT regulations and the state's got it well in hand.
Okay. All right, so that sign is not part of an off-premise sign that will be dealt with underneath this. However, the 75-foot structure or the sign is a off-premise sign and will require another application for an off-premise sign, if you want to go through with it. There are some other concerns that I have. One is that the V-shaped sign itself, in your plan, there's nothing that shows any dimensions of how big the support structure is. And that has to be considered when deciding on this. It doesn't show the wording on it. It doesn't show, it doesn't show the V-shape part of the sign. Your application says it's 384 square feet, and it's really, if it's two-sided, it's 768. So the application, it doesn't have the correct information on it. Also, the balloon test that was done really wasn't. I didn't get a chance to see it. I know that there was. I don't know if anyone else here got a chance to see whether when you were flying the balloons, but I'm sure any abutter or even just the general public was not able to see that. I think that should be redone so that people can see it for themselves. They can draw their own conclusions, positive or negative, and I think that's that should be done. I think we need some more information about this, Kathy. And it's nothing that you can't provide, but I'm not sure that we're able to make a decision tonight based on the information that we have. That's my 2 cents. Does anyone else have any other comments?
I just have a question, and it goes beyond my area of expertise. Signage is marketing. I mean, that's the key. Today, when Jeff alluded to tourists and people coming from up and down, I'm going to hit my phone and find out where the regional healthcare facility is or where medical facilities are, and that'll give me directions, point A to point B. Again, I don't fault whomever made this decision to go that route, but I think an app with Littleton Hospital tied into its regional care facility and the medical offices. If I have an appointment with Dr. X, I'm going to hit my phone. How do I get there? I just went to Dartmouth Hitchcock down in Manchester, and that's probably did it all on the phone, no signage, but that's just a comment.
And the other thing I wanted to ask Peter about this as well. Peter, I had sent you an email about this as to whether or not there needs to be 2 applications in this consideration, one for the dimensional properties of the sign and one for the off-premise, or can they all be considered under one special exception?
Currently, before you is an application for a special exception in relation to the size of the sign.
Correct.
And the height of the sign. And you're suggesting, Paul, that they should file a separate application for special exception because the 75-foot sign also contains an advertisement for the business that's going to be located on lot 1. Correct?
Yeah, I'm just asking a question as to whether or not, I'm not sure. I've done some reading and some of the research I did suggested that these be split up as, you know, when you're actually asking the questions about it, that, you know, there may be different considerations for the special exception for an off-premise sign versus the special exception for the dimensional qualities of the sign.
Yeah, I would suggest that you maybe poll the board and ask if they feel like they are comfortable going forward tonight with the application that they have, or do they basically agree with you that the applicant should file a separate special exception because the sign is located on lot 2, but it's advertising in part the business located on lot 1, which makes it an off-premise sign, which requires a special exception under your ordinance. And under their explanation of the special exception criteria is all about size and height. It's not about reasons why they should be permitted this sign to advertise for an off-premises business.
And it is a second off-premise sign as well. It's not just the first one. So it's a question. I mean, that's not addressed by the current application. So we really don't have the information.
So to the rest of the board, does anybody want to weigh in on the issue as to whether or not the board wants the applicant to file a separate application for special exception, laying out the reasoning on an off-premise sign to advertise for the business on lot 1? Or are you comfortable with what you have here with all the reasoning basically being in relation to size and height?
Personally, I'm comfortable on voting on this application as it is, with the consideration that it is a second sign, but it's one development. I don't really feel like there's need to get the special exception. If we decide that this sign is right for them, or we think it's right for Lincoln, we can vote on it. That's just my opinion.
So the vote will be about
The size and height.
the size and height as well as the special exception for an off-premise sign.
That, in my opinion, I mean, we might as well,
Jack, how you
why
doing?
drag it on?
I defer to council. Ray?
I agree that we have enough information before us to proceed without requiring a separate special exception. If the applicant is comfortable doing that, I would ask the applicant.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ray, go ahead. I cut you off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would say I would ask the applicant if they are comfortable proceeding on that basis. Because if somebody appeals on that basis, it should be the applicant that makes a decision whether or not to take that risk.
Miles, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Paul, and I agree that we have enough information, I think, before us and with what they're asking for to proceed tonight. But I do understand Ray's point that, yeah, let's see what the applicant wants to do. I mean, you can finish polling the board, but, you know, that's up to them.
Well, I have, you're the last one, so I'm okay.
Oh, okay,
I'm okay with it too. I just wanted to bring it up so that it was addressed. So that it couldn't be
thank you.
later that we didn't address it as an item.
I think it was important to bring it up, Mr. Chairman.
The Kathy, are you comfortable proceeding?
I'm comfortable. I think I'd also like to defer to Mark as well to make sure that he's okay with it. I mean, part of why we submitted the application we did is for the same thing you said. This is one development. But I don't know if Mark has any.
Mark, would you like to weigh in?
Well, is the board gonna vote on both of them or just one? I guess that's my question. Because if someone's gonna appeal an approval, we'll have to address that one way or another. But if the board really thinks that a second special exception is justified, and it votes that way at this hearing, then it changes our perspective. But if the board votes that a special exception is not required for a second off-premises sign, then I think all we can do is proceed.
My understanding, Mark, from polling the board is that the board would vote as one special exception for the size and for the off-premise would be considered underneath one special exception. Is that?
And height.
And size and height, I'm sorry, size and height
Size
and the off-premise, even though the off-premise part of it wasn't addressed in the application. And that's why I guess maybe the question really is, if it is an off-premise, considered a second off-premise sign, it wasn't addressed in the application. So someone could challenge that, saying that it wasn't addressed in the application. So that's the reason I brought the whole thing up.
Well, the good thing about these Zoom meetings are that my client's actually zooming in right now. So, I mean, they can tell me in real time how they feel about the subject.
Jeff wants to make a comment, so I guess she's part of your client, right? Go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I'm comfortable moving forward with it being part of the same process, obviously. There'd really be no point in us coming back to a special exception for an second off-premise sign if you're not gonna vote the sign in to start with. It's kind of a moot point. I mean, if you're gonna turn this first sign down, then why would we even bother to come back? So they're either tied together or they're not. It's not like you vote the sign down, we come back to an off-premise sign, or not.
Well, the sign ordinance is pretty specific about an off-premise sign requiring a special exception. Can you tie the two together when it wasn't identified in the application? That's the question. Could someone challenge that? I don't know. They might. I don't know. Ooh. But I mean, when you talk to the side, a sign of this size and magnitude, you know, it's better to be out in the open about everything. Peter, what do you think? I'm going to ask you for your input on this, please.
I am okay with the board proceeding. It sounds like everybody's in agreement to proceed. I do think the application, I mean, obviously the applicant didn't hide the fact that they were advertising for the business on lot 1 on this sign. It's clearly stated. They may not have gone into a great amount of detail in their written submission on the various criteria for a special exception, but it's certainly shown on the application. I'm okay going forward. Sounds like the board's okay going forward. The applicant's, you know, willing to accept whatever risk there might be, and somebody potentially appealing and complaining that they didn't specify this particular off-premise issue in their application. So it's okay with me if it's okay with them.
It sounds to me like everybody's in agreement, so we'll proceed with it as one special exception. I still have the concern about the sign, special exception for the sign, and the fact that we don't have any real dimensional qualities of the sign being the V-shaped sign that it is. The application still was incorrect at 384 square feet. So if it is a V-shaped sign, it is the 768. So we would need to make that change on the application, and we would also need to know the dimensions of the substructure or the base, so that we can calculate that against the requirements in the ordinance to show how much of a difference it is, or what it actually is, because we don't have that. Lillian, did you? Lillian, did you have something?
You don't know how big the stand?
How deep?
According to the ordinance, the base can only be, I've got
1 feet or 2 feet depending on.
Oh, the black part.
It's actually, no, it's considered, the whole base structure is considered that.
Okay.
This is the sign, this is the whole base structure, and if it's a V-shaped sign like this,
Yeah, that's what I,
then it becomes bigger, so it becomes more of a
right.
base structure.
Double.
It's double. So, we really need to know what that is in order to be able to calculate that, to see what that is. And we don't have that currently. Is there any other questions or comments? Jack? No. Lily?
So are you saying you don't think that we can vote on it because of that?
I think we need to continue that. My thing would be to continue this to a date and time specific to be able to get that information. And if the board decided that they wanted to have a balloon test done at the 75 feet, so the board could see it and so that the general public could see it, and any of the abutters, that would also be a consideration to take at this time. If not, I'm just putting out all the, things that I've come up with, and if anyone else has anything, any other comments? Ray, Miles?
Well, my first response is that they're obviously asking tonight for a sign that's well in advance of the height restriction, and both considering the size of the sign as applied for. Even if we decide, it's really more square footage, it's over what the regulation permits. And I think our regulations are well worded. And I think we could probably go forward and vote on the height and the size of it tonight without having to make them go through all this extra work. If they do get permission to do this tonight, it could be subject to a final engineering approval of, structure size, or was it steel, is it wood, what's the gauge of the steel, things like that. What wind force will it support? But I think we hopefully should be able to move forward based on the information that's provided. And that's my feeling.
Hey, Ray?
I would agree with Miles' analysis. And once again, provided that the applicant has taken that responsibility, and they have.
Jack? I'd like to hear, we have a gentleman who wanted to speak earlier in the audience. Well, I don't have any further questions. Well, when we open it up to public input, everybody that wants to.
Oh, I have a question. Can you change, they want, where you said it's a two-sided sign, it doubles the square foot. They're only in here for what they asked, right? They can't double the size of that. They have to reapply.
No.
Correct? No. We can
I don't
change
know.
that here.
I don't know.
We can only approve what they've asked for, correct?
Right.
So they can only get the 336. They can't get two-sided
Peter?
sign. Correct, Peter?
The question is, because it's now a V-shaped sign and the applicant only was asking for in their proposal 384 square feet, and ends up being 768 because it's a two-sided or a V-shaped sign with twice square footage and twice the base. What are we really going to approve tonight? Can we change this the numbers on this tonight and approve something bigger than what was asked for?
I think that it's fairly common for a condition of approval to require changes to be made to plans. And then the plans are resubmitted, and then it's sort of a clerical issue to just check the math and make sure it says 768 square feet instead of 384, and then it becomes a final approval. So I don't think the fact that they sort of only indicated half of the square footage because they left off the other half of the V-shaped sign necessarily requires a new application. I think if you are inclined to approve the application, it could be a condition of approval that be corrected.
And how about the base?
if we don't have any dimensions for the base, how do we figure out the support structure, the square footage for the support structure?
You could make a motion to continue if you feel like you can't make a decision until you have that information. And see if the rest of the board agrees and get that information in time for the next hearing. Or if that's information, again, that you feel like you can gather tonight and make a condition of approval that the plan be amended accordingly prior to final approval being granted, you could handle it that way. It's up to the board. Do you think you need to see that in advance and instead of trying to handle it sort of on the fly during this hearing? Or do you feel like you can kind of handle it on the fly during this hearing and update the plan accordingly?
It's hard to quantify. I mean, I'm thinking about it and as a fairness issue to future people who come in may want a 75-foot tall sign. Who may bring an application in that, you know, like this and say, well, you didn't make the other people do that. Why are you making us? So, I mean,
I have had requests for signs, huge signs for the McDonald's and for Rite Aid and for the car wash on Route 3
Recently?
in the past 2 years. And I've said no.
In my opinion, we can vote on what the sign, the wording is here, the 75-foot sign. I don't feel like if we approve this and then they make a bigger sign, that's a whole different ballgame. But if we approve this, what it says here, then that's all they can do, or they have to come back and ask.
Well, right.
This is all they should be able to do.
I feel.
They
No,
can't double
I
it.
agree, but what we're not able to do is confirm what the support structure is in relationship to the ordinance.
Understood.
Without having the benefit of a drawing that shows it.
Understood, but I still think we're voting on what they submitted tonight. If we can get through that, they get approval for this or not.
But the support structure is part of that approval.
Well, that can, I'm talking about the height and the width. I'm sure that the final plan will have, I don't think the bottom of it is gonna make a difference. What we care about is sticking out of the trees.
Well, no, you do care about what the support structure is because it's part of the ordinance and you have to, because if you don't, then everyone else that comes in could have a huge support
Right.
structure, you know.
I understand, but what I'm getting at is if they want to build a bigger sign, they should be asking for that. They should be asked.
You're saying you think it should be, it should,
If this sign that is in the application is not really what they're going to build or what they want to build, what are we doing?
as Peter just said, we can amend this up or down.
Okay.
And we can do that. We can do that as a vote.
And that would be the maximum that we would allow. And as Mr. Woodward has said, that if, trees taken down that are dead, allow them to come with a lower height sign, then that's what they would do, recognizing that 75-foot sign is controversial because it's probably, is that the largest one in town? Would it be the largest one in town? So again, they're willing to work with us. I think we should work with them.
Go ahead, Ray.
I think Mr. Chairman, I think your concern about in essence, the integrity, the stability, the capacity of the base is an appropriate one. I would suggest that we make a condition that the engineer for the applicant would certify the engineering integrity of the base as a condition of approval.
So it's really not the integrity. According to the ordinance, it says the support structure for a freestanding sign must not exceed 50% of the allowable sign square footage. So we have no dimensions, we have no quantification of what that support structure is. So we can't tell if it's 50% of the sign square footage and it is for the allowable.
I understand, Mr. Chairman. Let me, and I agree with you, let me amend what I added by saying that provided that the final design is within that dimension. If it isn't, they have to come back and request another variance.
That's what I was getting at.
Ray, if I may, the application contents specifically state the detailed scale drawing of the proposed sign and its support system, including all dimensions. So that is lacking, as Paul, keeps citing.
I understand, and I would think that condition fulfills that requirement and puts the integrity of the sign and the base on the applicant. The risk, in other words.
Well, the risk is always on the applicant. I see someone with a hand up. Is someone with a hand up? No?
Peter.
Peter, go ahead.
It seems like you have two viewpoints. One is to proceed tonight with the public hearing, perhaps, even take a vote on approving or disapproving the application. And if you approve it, create some conditions which address your legitimate concerns about the lack of detail regarding the structure. And the other point of view, your point of view, Paul, is to make a motion to continue to a date and time certain and require the applicant, prior to that continued hearing date, require the applicant to provide the board with this level of detail that you're looking for, and in fact, the ordinance requires regarding the base of the structure, the base of the sign. And also, as part of that motion to continue, if you want to make it, have another balloon test done if the board thinks that's appropriate, so that not only the board, but Lincoln residents and the abutters from Woodstock can see what the balloons look like. Do you want to make your motion? Do you want to make a motion to continue, Paul, and see if the rest of the board, is of the same mindset as you, or a majority that it should be continued until you have this additional information and another balloon test is done?
I would like to make a motion that we continue this to a date and time specific to allow the applicant to provide the base support structure dimensions and to conduct another balloon test so that other people can see it visually and not just through the papers that were provided. I think that would be give everybody a clear picture of what they're looking at 75 feet, and we'll give the board the information that we will need, or the staff even, to be able to figure out whether it complies with the support structure complies with the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion. This is Ray.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Would we want them to correct the sign amount? Yeah, the square footage.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they would have to revise that square footage.
And ask about the second premise sign.
Um,
They should include it, right? If we're gonna redo it, may as well ask for all of the parts.
Do you want? You think the second off-premise sign as well?
I think that that would encompass everything, should somebody decide they want to appeal it.
If we're going to continue it, go ahead and ask for the application for the second off-premise sign as well. Ray, is that okay to modify that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Miles, do you have any comments?
No, I agree with everything, and they should also add what the finished square footage of their sign area is gonna be.
Yeah, we had just talked about that.
Right,
All right.
correct.
Okay, so the motion is to continue to a date and time specific, and to have the applicant submit further detail on the support structure, the dimensions, and to conduct another balloon test at a date and time that they can choose, and just let the board know so we can advertise. I would ask for enough time so we could put it on the town's website, maybe give it to Woodstock as well.
Yeah, I had that.
And also to change the square footage to be accurate, and to, what was the one you just said? And to add the other special exception for the off-premise sign, second off-premise sign. So that's the motion. Ray seconded it. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand, please. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Ray.
Aye, Miles.
Aye, Miles, and
I'm gonna
Leah's
abstain.
abstaining, so it passes 4-1, abstention. So Carol, when would you like to be able to, when will you be able to have that ready, Kat?
Do you meet monthly? Do you meet every other week? How often?
No, we can meet, anytime the planning board is not meeting on a Wednesday night. So the planning board meets the second and fourth Wednesday. I fit the ZBA in on other Wednesdays, so, the planning board is gonna meet on the 14th, which is next week. The week after that is the, 21st. I don't know if you could.
And when how much before the meeting do you want the information? Do you want it 10
Well,
days ahead of the
I'm
meeting?
not gonna notice everybody except for,
Right.
I don't have to re-notice anybody because anybody who's present, who wanted to come is here. They've already been noticed.
Carol, we do want to, I think, notice Woodstock, because I don't think they were on the abutter notification, is that correct? Someone made that comment, I'm just asking.
So
Can we
is
just
that
let
gonna
them know, or do we need to?
I mean, I can do that.
Okay. I would prefer that.
Courtesy, we should notify their board of selectmen, at least they could be here as public.
Right.
So, I mean, I could email them what I've already sent for this, tell them that it's email, and talk to Judy Welch and say it's been continued to whatever date. The planning board's two dates are the 14th and the 28th, so I don't know if the 21st is too fast.
So,
but we have to
Kathy, if we went to the
advertise-
21st,
We have to advertise right away for the meeting.
Well, I guess that's,
how much time do you need to organize that balloon test?
it's kind of weather dependent, it doesn't work in the rain or on a windy day, so maybe we can want to give ourselves some extra time instead of trying to push it for the 21st.
People get to notice it.
The 21st is like a week and a half, so you want to go after that?
Okay, so the 28th is the planning board, so what's the first meeting in August, first week in August, Wednesday?
First Wednesday is
Fourth.
4th?
4th.
August 4th. Okay. And the revised information in terms of the dimensions of the support structure and the revised application, when do you need that 10 days before your meeting? When do you need your information? So I make sure.
I would say 10 days before the meeting.
Okay.
And you should look at obviously the land use plan ordinance for the criteria with regards to the support structure and what it's supposed to meet. in comparison to the sign.
And I will,
I have a question for Carol, I guess, maybe in regards to that. It says that the support structure must not exceed 50% of the allowable sign square footage. Now, the allowable sign square footage is what is it? For two signs, it's 320? What's the allowable square footage for the,
150 with the
One-
original.
150.
What it says.
Allowable.
I mean, the amount.
no, but it's two signs. So the allowable square footage, if it's a, that's what I'm asking.
So we're no longer talking about a freestanding sign not exceeding 50 feet per business, which is what the ordinance says. We're now talking about a percentage of what you're talking about, like
No.
as in 700 and.
Well, but it
That's not
says
what
the
the ordinance
allowable, so is the allowable what the ordinance says, or is the allowable what the applicant is requesting?
Well, it's a Peter question.
Peter? I guess.
It has to be what they're requesting, doesn't it? I mean, they can't build a sign the size that they want to build it with a base the size of what the ordinance.
I'm just asking because the ordinance says allowable, so.
I think allowable has to be what the number has to be the number that they're proposing, but
Okay, so just so Kathy's aware of what the number is she needs to work with. So the number you will be working with will be your total square footage of 768 based on your current application.
and that's 50%, the structure is 50% of that number, is that
Right.
Yep.
Freestanding sign must
Yep.
not, right, the support
Okay.
structure. So it's 50% of that number.
Okay, thank you for that.
And then it says, and maximum depth is 1 foot, except for support structures, natural stone or stone-like product where maximum depth could be 2 feet. So you'll have to, those parameters are pretty thin for a sign that's 75 feet
Right.
tall, I think. You're not getting too much for wind load grading.
No.
No, you're not kind of with only a maximum depth of 2 feet. So why don't you see what you need for design standards, engineering design standards, and then we can address that through a condition of approval.
Okay. Okay.
Due to the fact that if the board was to vote for the 75-foot sign, it will require this for safety. And that, I think we can address that the next time we meet. So we're talking about continuing this to the 4th of August, time 6 o'clock.
Mayor Bowden, can I ask one quick question? I'm sorry if I missed it, but Kathy, do we have clear instructions on how much advance notice Carol needs before we schedule the balloon test? Such that Carol can
Well,
alert everyone.
here's the issue for me, is that the paper that we use, the Littleton Courier, which is only published once a week, the deadline for the Courier is noon on Friday for the show up in the paper the following Wednesday. So, so would you have some idea about when the balloon test would be before Friday? Or it would have to be the next Friday to show up in the following Wednesday paper?
Yeah, I think this Friday is too soon, but
Okay.
I think what I could do is give a date and a rain date.
I would agree. And also, if you want to, Jack's point that, maybe if you want to schedule it on a weekend, it might even be better. I don't know what the scheduling is, but it may be better for a lot of other people. They don't have to get out of work.
Yeah, it's trying to get a staff person down here on the weekend to set it up is what I would struggle with. But if it has to be, I guess that's the question. What duration do you want this? I mean, when we initially did the balloon test, I think we were only out there for half a day while we were running the different scenarios. But
Well,
how
you're only gonna be
long do you
doing one
want-
scenario here at the 75 foot.
Oh, yeah, but
So I would think that, and when we did the one for the cell tower, they didn't do all day either. I think it was a 4 hour, I believe it was a 4 hour window.
4
So,
hours.
yeah, if you want to do the 4 hour window for the 75 feet, and we can give people ample notice. And once you let Carol know, she will in turn let Woodstock know, and Woodstock can let whoever they want to let know as well.
Okay.
Um,
And does
So
it have to be on a weekend?
it doesn't have to be. It would be
That's a
better to be,
preference. Okay,
you know, because just to get more participation from board members and the general public on a weekend.
You can have a small sign by the balloon test saying future site up, because the tourists will want to see the balloon and stop and see it.
no, I know they can go for a ride in the balloon, right?
Really?
So I'm sorry if I missed it again, but if we're not telling Carol by this Friday, the deadline would be next Friday? That's when Carol, or Thursday?
Yeah, so
Oh. Come on.
the next Friday would be the 6th.
Oh, I'm leaving.
So
Ray, are you
maybe
raising your
we can
hand,
go-
Ray?
I have to go upstairs. There's a request for me to be up there doing something, so I'd like to excuse myself. Can I be excused?
Yes, you can be excused,
Thank you.
and we'll see Susan and Ray's place if there needs to be any more decisions. So Susan,
Okay, so-
Shar will be seated.
So I'd like to get it to the paper then maybe by the 16th, so maybe you could get it to me by the 15th. But, you know, what you've arranged and then got it to me by the 15th. Then the 16th, like by noon, I could have it to the paper.
And so then it has to be after Wednesday, the 21st.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
We're
it'll be in the
talking about
paper on the
the 4th
21st, right?
we're talking about, the hearing, being on the 4th, so it would be in the paper on the 21st, so it could be any day after that, I guess.
Yeah.
Any day after
The
the 21st.
Friday, you know, the 23rd, maybe?
But that cuts into the 10-day information. to
That's
us.
okay.
I think
mean, that's fine.
that's a little excessive, 5 days.
But I think you can have the information on the sign that you're looking for, not including the balloon test earlier.
Right.
Yeah,
And the balloon test is gonna be balloon test, but it's about the size of the sign
Correct.
that you're looking for, you can have that earlier.
Right. And you can submit that in, you know, you can submit that anytime, so Carol can send it off to us.
yeah, just make sure you send me
And the
the
application,
the digital too, because then I can just.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, I've got to check on staffing so that I can get
Yeah.
somebody out here, but we will shoot for the balloon test on Friday, the 3rd, with a confirmation to you by the 15th.
that'd be good.
And I'll pick a rain date. I'll look at the extended forecast and see what we're looking at.
And
Yeah.
the sooner you do it after the notification, it's gonna be on people's minds. For
Right,
too long, they're gonna think about it.
right.
so are you all set as to what information we're looking for, the base, special exception, and the support structure information? And the square footage change on the application.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Did we ever open it?
No.
not yet. Not yet. So I would entertain a motion now to open this to public comment, so that Kathy, if there's any public that wants to make a comment, Kathy, that maybe answer questions at the next time as well. Second motion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Miles? Miles? Well, I guess we have four anyway, so.
Okay,
Are you there, Miles?
yes,
Okay, we're opening up to public input. Are you okay with that? We just took a motion. We're voting.
okay, I'm ready.
Okay. All right, is there any public that would like to comment?
Have copies been made to give to all the board members? If you could state your name, sir, please, for the record. My name is Dave Driscoll. I'm representing Deer Park Resort. And I think a copy has been given to each of the members of our position with regard to certain conditions. I don't know that it's necessary to read this whole thing into the record, is it?
You can submit this into the record as you've written it. It would be nice. It doesn't appear to me. The copy that I have doesn't have your name on it. It just says,
Yeah, just put his name on the bottom, handwrite it, Dave Driscoll. With two L's.
I think if we're gonna put it into the record, we would like a copy with your name on
Oh, I
it.
can do that, sure. No
You know,
problem.
brought to the town so they have it with your signature on.
Just submit that to you.
You could just email it to me. I emailed earlier.
Okay.
And Kathy, did you get a copy of this?
I did, yes.
So you'll disseminate it amongst the rest of your,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, that's yours. It's a good
I'd just like to make a couple of points.
go ahead.
Hang on,
Let him finish.
Sir, Mr. Driscoll, excuse me, before you start. Would you please read it in, because you've got people on the Zoom site that have no idea what you're talking about, what we're gonna refer to. So if you don't mind reading it into for the people that are attending by Zoom. I would agree. I think most of the people that are on the Zoom site know what this is. So there are some.
Well, no, there's some that probably don't. Does everybody on the Zoom have a copy of this Deer Park Resort letter? Is there anyone that does not have a copy of it and would like him to read it?
Well, I don't think, I think the only people that have it are members of the board.
Okay, so Mr. Driscoll, you'll have to read it, please. If you want, you will have to read it if you want to, because the only ones that got the letter were the members of this board.
Okay. Well, it's listed as having 3 conditions. I think conditions were taken from considerations of the board should take in connection with making the decision here. Condition 1, this relates to whether the variance or special exception will be contrary to the public interest. We assert that that is the case. Related question is whether the variance alters the central character of the neighborhood. Again, we believe that due to the size and location of the signage, that would represent a variance that would alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Condition 2, another question before the board is whether the variance would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. Due to the substantial increase in the height and the overall square footage of the sign, it appears that there would be no question that this would go well beyond the spirit of the ordinance, particularly limiting the height of the sign to 20 feet. In accordance with the past decisions of zoning boards, one consideration can be the cumulative impact of a particular variance if it is granted to everyone in a similar situation, not just the impact of a particular of the applicant alone. In our opinion, the granting of this variance would open up Pandora's box. How about 50 to 75 foot tall signs from McDonald's and Rogers Sporting Goods? I don't see why they couldn't make similar requests or maybe Dr. Felgate, he's another medical facility down here. Maybe he wants people to know exactly where he is. They come off of 93. Condition 3, the board can consider whether substantial justice will be done by granting the variance. We disagree that any substantial justice would be carried out. We anticipate that the applicant may well argue that having a sign to identify the location of a medical facility is in the best interest of the public. However, the applicant or the town has access to several other options. First, for the local residents, we believe that they are well aware of the intended construction of this urgent care facility. It's been in the newspapers all over town. Regarding non-residents who travel primarily on Route 93, signage can be provided, and I think it's been alluded to already, directly on the highway between exits 31 and 33,
that clearly inform the public of the existence of this facility. We'd also like to point out, with regard to the similar facility in Littleton, such road signage already exists in several locations on Route 93 with regard to a very similar urgent care facility in Littleton. With regards to the location of the sign, from our observation of the area, is very close to Route 93, and frankly, without removing several trees, and I guess there's been some discussion of that. I've been over there, and frankly, if it sits there as it exists, I don't know how somebody in 93 could possibly even see the sign, to be honest with you. There's very few gaps between trees in that area. Now, whether they can take down in mass certain trees, whether they're making an argument that some of these trees are close to dead, they didn't look all that dead to me. So we're questioning whether travel on 93, whether this sign would even effectively be observed by people going at 65 to 75 miles an hour on 93, particularly due to the very close presence of this sign directly. Or affected by signage on Route 93, approaching exit 30 direction indicating the existence of the facility. And contrary to, I think the study kind of side vision. Supposedly, the argument is that there's no regional or visual impact. Now, I'm delighted that you've decided to do this balloon test, because I really don't think this zoning board can come to any conclusion that there's no regional or visual impact to a major resort like Deer Park Resort. I don't think we know that. So I'm delighted with the fact that they will take this balloon test on. I think that'll tell us something about the location of this. So I don't know if there are any other notes. The other thing is that the appellant has kind of indicated, well, if it doesn't have to go to 75 feet, so maybe 50 feet will do it. Well, give them approval for 50 feet then. I really don't see the impact from Route 93 that this sign is going to have. You know, if somehow it was up in a hill and they were coming in either direction, and you could see this sign visibly, these people are going to be streaking by that facility. I just don't see it being observed by people, to be honest with you. So that's our position anyway.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. Okay, just one comment to you, that this is not, the applicant's not asking for a variance, but they're asking for a special exception. And a special exception.
Yeah.
The special exception has different criteria.
Yeah, I don't know what the difference is there, but.
Okay. Is there any other general public that would like to make comment? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment.
And your name, sir?
David Balsamo.
Okay, please go.
I have a condo at Deer Park, or we have a condo at Deer Park also. Just a couple points. First, you know, in today's world, if you need to find a facility, most people do have phones or GPS in their cars. They go by that, and you know, we don't rely on signs as much as we used to. That's just the point. The other thing is, as far as the visual impact of the sign, I also am happy about the second balloon test, but what I would like to see actually is a balloon that approached the size of the sign, so that you can get an actual understanding of how that visual, the impact will be. You know, you can put up a balloon, and if it's 25% of the size of the actual sign, well, you're not going to get a true understanding of the visual impact. So if you're going to do a balloon test, then it should approach the size of the sign that's going up. My opinion.
I would assume that the
Hang
balloons.
hang on, sir, please. Is that all you have to offer?
Yeah, I think so. Do you have anything to offer?
Back to Woodstock. I'm Masha Montanaro, and I with David Balsamo own a unit at Deer Park. Our unit is, and we pay taxes to North Woodstock. And obviously they needed to be notified about this, and I'm glad you're doing that now.
Yes, thank you.
And it is a concern that this sign will be eyesore to those of us at Deer Park where this sign is right over the pond.
Okay. Is there any other general public that would like to make a comment?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, the lady, I don't know your name. I can't see it from here.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Sue Dixon.
Sue Dixon.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Susan Dixon, and my husband and I are full-time residents in Lincoln, living in the Lakeside Sub-Association of Deer Park. I'm also on the Lakeside Board, and I represent 8 families with homes around the lake in Deer Park. And we are actually residents of Lincoln, not Woodstock, because the town line actually cuts right through our development. So we belong to Lincoln. First, I just wanted to say that we're really excited about the prospect of an urgent care moving to Lincoln. We've lived here over 20 years and raised kids here, and we have had the occasion many times to have to travel to somewhere else like Littleton to get stitches and prescriptions and have lab tests run and things like that. So we're glad to have the new facility, but we really don't see any reason why it needs a huge sign up on the highway. I've had no trouble finding such facilities in Littleton or wherever else I went simply by using my phone or by using they have great highway signs, and the little blue signs point you right to the urgent care in Littleton. There's no problem. I think this sign is just not really necessary. We did choose Lincoln because it's not overdeveloped, and it's the gateway to the state forest, the national forest, and the White Mountains. When we're at our condo, we go there because we want to be surrounded by nature. When we reach Route 32, we breathe a sigh of relief because we're in one of the most beautiful natural areas that we have seen in our many trips around this whole country. We oppose any tall signs along the highway at exit 32. When you drive that corridor now, you don't see any, somebody did say there were signs, but the signs you're referring to are billboard signs, along the side of the road, not some huge lurking structure overhanging the highway. That's a very different thing. And they mentioned the Alpine Adventure sign. You can't even see it anymore. It's covered by trees now. So I can't even consider that a sign. We don't have any of those like they do at exit 20 and exit 42. And we don't want them. That's why we chose this kind of area to live in. Everything's hidden by the trees. Even worse, we feel like if this special exception is granted, it's going to set a bad precedent. And now McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts and Holiday Inn and everybody else is going to want one. And we're going to look like one of those polluted exits that you drive by with all the signs everywhere. Those exits that I mentioned, like 32 and 20, they're dominated by commercial businesses and stuff. And that's not true on exit 32. We have a big, huge residential development right next to the highway. And we think we're probably going to be seeing that sign. The heart of Deer Park itself is our lake with our recreation center. And besides the few of us that live on the lake itself, there's hundreds of owners that come up to use the recreation center and the beach. And we feel this area is directly across the interstate from where you're going to put that sign. And we feel like there's a good chance that we're going to be able to see it. We're glad that you're now talking about having a second balloon test, because it doesn't seem right to put up a sign and then decide whether we can see it or not. I don't think it's fair there was a comment earlier by somebody who walks Deer Park, and they said they don't think you'll be able to see the sign. Well, we don't know that. That's not a fact. And we want a fact before, something like this is done. We think it's quite possible that we're going to see it over the trees. We do understand the desire for this applicant to make travelers aware of their property in order to attract customers, but we feel like this can be done using standard highway signs like they do at the urgent care in Littleton. Additional signs at the exit, what I think is what you were talking about earlier in the meeting, something at the end of Railroad Street there to guide them in, tell them where to turn. We think that's all fine, and we don't think that you need this huge looming sign. It's not really like you're having to advertise. People are looking for you. They can use their phones and they can use the signs to find you. It's not we don't need to be advertising. Can the board see if I share a picture on my screen?
Hang on, Ron. We're asking our technology guy here to see if he can.
Okay.
Yes, he's allowed to do it.
Go ahead.
Okay. So it says it's disabled.
He's gonna try again.
Try it.
Okay.
Hang on a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Here, look in the right part of my lenses here.
Are you all set now, Ron?
I think so.
Try it again, please.
Okay. All right, there we go. And so I think, okay, so this, can you guys see that?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so this is the plot plan with Lincoln and Woodstock put
Yeah.
next to each other. And the big star here is where you're putting the sign. Okay, and then right here, whoops, I thought I was gonna be able to write on this. I was able to earlier, but I don't know if you can see my cursor. Right here are, whoops, sorry, let me go back. 2 of our units are right here, or actually 4 of our units of the 8 and the others are over here. Our recreation center where everybody hangs out at the beach is right here. And we're afraid that we're gonna be able to see that sign right across the highway from there. And
Good.
then we've got all the people that live down in the loop here, hundreds of units. And they may not be able to see it from their yards because they're surrounded by a lot of trees, but they all use the beach and the recreation center. So they're all gonna get this view if it does interfere. And I just also added, this is the view from the beach and the recreation center. And that yellow triangle that I made, or rectangle I made, I think is where we're likely to be able to see that sign sticking up. And now I can't tell that without this balloon test, but just based on kind of looking at angles and things, I think that's about where it's gonna be. And I think there's a good chance we're gonna be able to see it. And that, you know, look at that view that we have. It's gorgeous. It's all nature. And then we're gonna have like a big, huge advertisement stuck up there right in the middle of it. And I don't think it's necessary.
Right, doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
So
So,
are you finished?
yeah.
Okay. Is there any other general public that wants to make a comment?
I'd like to speak.
Hang on 1 minute, please.
I just want David's last name spelled for me, that you spoke earlier.
Is it right there? B-L-A?
B-A-L-S-A-M-O? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, the next, go ahead. Who's the next person? Please identify yourself.
Gary Blaisdell.
Okay,
We
Gary.
live at 310 Lakeside West, which is probably she was showing you the lake and the recreational area. Our home is further to the left of that, which would be impact greater. Not that the beach being impacted is not a big result, but you can kind of hear the crackling of my voice or the concern, and I'm glad you people are here and, do a great job, try to respect our area or whatnot. Dave and Sue, I think, had touched on a lot of points that I had written down. One of the things I'd have consideration on the balloon test would be, right now we have a lot of leaves and stuff on the trees, which may make it a little bit more difficult to see. But in the wintertime, when all those leaves are off the trees, our view across the lake, and my wife Angel's here with me, our view across the lake to Loon Mountain, as Sue had said, we dreamed about being there for many years, worked very hard, to be able to be there. And I think it'll be greatly impacted. I know there was another area in Woodstock that we looked behind Lost River, some beautiful homes on the hill there that we dreamed about being in too. I can't imagine the impact they would have with that sign, I'm a business owner as well, so I understand, as a business owner, we want to make things bigger and better or whatever, but I think as Sue and David said, and many other people had said, a facility such as that we seek when we have injuries and stuff like that, and we can easily find them on the phone, and those highway signs and stuff like that would be much better directing us to those facilities. Let me see what else I had here. Again, Dave and Sue had mentioned a bunch of the things that I had written down, but I just want to thank you for the consideration. But I'd also like to know when that balloon test would be, and perhaps be able to suggest some locations that we could look at that from to see the impact of that sign, So again, thank you for the consideration.
Currently, the balloon test is going to be scheduled for August 4th.
No,
here.
July
July 23rd.
July 23rd, I'm sorry.
That's tentative.
August 4th was the hearing, right?
It'll be
It'll be in the paper, and it will be for a 4-hour period.
What paper would that be in?
Littleton Courier.
Littleton Courier,
Yeah.
July,
Well, yeah, that's as close to we
right.
What we could do is, I'm gonna be emailing Mr. Driscoll, the notice.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Driscoll can then forward that
I can
to
distribute
his
that.
members.
Yeah.
So he should be able to do that.
And have we decided on a 4-hour period, Kathy? Are you gonna let us know what that 4-hour period will be?
You tell me when you would like it. 12 to 4.
12 to 4 sounds fine to me.
Okay.
So did you hear that, Mr. Blaisdell?
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I'll be able to make it that day.
12 to 4 on the 23rd. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment? I don't see anyone, so I'll entertain a motion to close public comment. So moved by Jack, second by Delia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand, please. Aye. Okay, so we have closed public comment. The only, based on some of the public comment, Kathy, the size of the balloon maybe, sounds like it might be in question as to, I don't know what size the balloon is that you have.
I think it was somewhere on the order of 24 inches is what I recall they ordered.
What's the biggest they can do?
I don't know. I saw it on Amazon, you know what I mean? Again, but again, I suppose I could probably put 2 of them up there. But the strength, you gotta have a strong enough rope to hold it. Think about when you put a cell tower balloon up. A cell tower is much larger than the balloon that's going up there.
Yeah,
but-
the one they did, I think was pretty big, but it was still smaller than what the array was at the top of it.
Right.
Because I had that same question when we were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll see what I can find, in terms of size. Like I said, the one that we did, I think was somewhere around 18 or 24 inch. But I'll see what else might be available, readily available.
All right.
Otherwise, if you do the 2, we were thinking of putting them at like the far ends of the.
Or side by side, I don't know. Because there's, again, that's why weather's so important, because you can't control what you've got up there. So we need a, calm day without rain to make it work as best we can. So we will, understanding what everybody is after in terms of something that is representative of what we're proposing to put up there, we will do the best that we can.
You've heard the comments, that would just be. Peter, are you still here? Yep. Do you have any comments before we close for the night?
I'm all set. It's a good discussion.
All right.
Can I just ask one question? I assume that the height of the balloon, the top of the balloon is going to be at 75 feet from ground level?
Yes.
question, Jeff, you said you had gone up and looked at the trees. Most of the trees in that area, the situation of evergreen, so it would be green year round. Yet over in Deer Park along the shores, I know that there's deciduous trees. That was referenced that, you know, the leaves fall off the trees over there.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
site.
We have no trees, right? Without leaves.
There's no way to make a test, a year-round test.
No,
right?
no.
So, all right, so we're all set. The next meeting will be August 4th. The balloon test will be the 23rd. It will last 4 hours from 12 to 4. And Kathy, you have all the information that we're requesting for that hearing,
For the next hearing.
for the next hearing?
Could I ask one more question on the balloon thing? Could you have a balloon at where the bottom of the sign would be and a balloon where the top of the sign would be? So we could figure out if it's just like a little blip or if it's gonna
I
be.
don't think so. And the only reason I say that is because based on the wind, it could make the sign look bigger than what it is.
Well, it's gonna look way smaller if you just give
Right.
us a 2-foot balloon at the bottom of the sign.
Either or, you really kind of gotta, unless you put the exact size sign up there floating in the air, you're not really gonna tell what it is, so. All right,
Better than nothing.
Well, no. but we need to do the minutes.
oh, that's right. I gotta go, Paul, sneak out. Okay, we're fine. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so we're all set and we're gonna move on to the minutes of the,
We have 2 sets of minutes.
and, are we looking at the April 7th ones, Carol?
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions about the April 7th minutes? Peter, I think we're all set. If you bug out. Oh,
Sounds good. Have a good night. Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, so we're on the April 7th minutes. Pardon me? That would be 2021 at 6 p.m. It's actually held in Lincoln Town Hall.
Wall.
This was the wall for the sinking house.
Right.
They haven't done it.
Well, they are having trouble getting a contractor.
Thank you very much.
Thank
They talked to
you.
other ones and the other contractors are like,
Okay, so we'll get on these minutes. Does anyone want to change them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 7th, 2021 as distributed.
Second.
Second by Delia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand, please. Aye.
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 Hey there, Miles. Thank you. Okay,
Yep.
those are approved. April 7th. I'm sorry. Carol, what were the other ones?
the April 26th, the cease and desist.
You know,
Right here.
Here they are, June 26th.
June 26th, 2021. Jack?
That's the one where
That
Jack was
was
there
the-
for like 5
That
minutes.
was the one that she said. Like,
Well, I just
this
barely
week.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the minutes about the garage of that Maltese.
I was only here for 2 minutes.
That's right, you were, so you will have. to-
I wasn't here. I would have to abstain.
So we only
We don't
have,
enough.
we only have 2. We don't have enough, so we'll have to put them on. Oh, Miles is here. Wow. Was Miles here for that one? He was. So we have 3. So we can still vote on that, so.
Susan, you could
Susan's on it. Susan, you want to make a motion to accept them, or do you want to change anything on it?
I'll make a motion to accept, sure.
Miles, you want to second that?
Uh,
Miles,
Yep.
do you want to second this, accepting the minutes of June 26th?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And then opposed, any abstentions? Abstain. Jack abstain
I
and
abstain.
Delia. Delia.
now.
Delia.
illegal, whatever.
Now.
Have an extra syllable.
I do. I always do that.
It's all right. I don't mind.
Okay,
I can
now
call
I can
worse.
do the notice of-
Okay, so those have both been approved. Was there anything else we have to go through?
I do have-
The business,
I just want to let you know that I do have another application for waivers. Or maybe that has to go to the planning board. Waiver of stormwater. That's what
that's
I-
planning board,
Never mind. Look, never mind.
stormwater.
Oh,
All right.
thank you. It was under other business, ZBA.
You know, I had that whole other packet underneath here, so before we get
That
going,
was-
there- is there any other business? The conductor, does anyone have any other business?
There's something, number 5 on today's agenda.
The agenda,
I
I
don't
have
think
doesn't
anybody
show
got
that. Number 5 is other business, public business.
Yeah, other business, ZBA members, alternates, zoning board staff.
No, that's just anybody can bring. it up.
Anybody can bring it up.
Anybody can bring.
Got it.
If there's not, if no one has any other business, what?
Can they not just like reduce some of their trees? Put bushes and low
Well, the
growing
trees are belong to the state.
They belong to the state.
State trees.
Yeah.
You don't own the trees. It's in the state right away. It's a buffer.
Make most,
The state highway. Make motion to.
adjourn. Motion to
Second.
make to adjourn, second by Jack, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ron?